Hello, Petal. How you doing? How are things going? It's Tuesday. You know what that means? New book. Whoop! So we have Odds and Gods on the agenda for today, and I'm really looking forward to this one because this is actually one of the first ones that I read. I kind of like, I didn't even think about it, and I got it confused with Ye Gods when Rose suggested it. I was like, hold on a minute. So it's kind of like when I was doing like my little teeny bit of prep, because I'm going to cold read it again because I know the story. As soon as you read those first few pages, you like think, the retirement home. Now I remember. One thing about the cover of this book that I always remembered was the kind of like the rather baggy tighty whities. So they weren't so much tighty whities anymore as part of baggy white fronts. God, I cannot abide them. I just hate them with a passion, and it just I just can't. Just no. But whatever anybody chooses to wear for comfort is up to them. That's no problem. I just don't need it around me. Thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Big Daddy Leo is one of the best creators on the internet right now, as far as I'm concerned. No, thank you. No, thank you. He's brilliant. Check him out. Seriously. So things are picking up a bit. It's autumn. The weather is a lot more tolerable. And it's just lovely, just kind of the leaves are out, and I know I keep waffling on about it, and I have done for the last few recordings, but seriously, it's the best time of the year. You know, they sing songs about the most wonderful time of the year. It's the most wonderful time of the year. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Autumn is. It's autumn and spring. Autumn's like, okay, now we're over. We've got to be really pretty before we go out. And spring's like, hello, hi. And then winter's like, yeah, I'm here. I'm owning it. I have a big festival in the middle of it, but it's winter, and I'm going to keep you nice and toasty. Why am I going to keep you toasty? Because I'm going to be really frosty and cold, so you're going to go indoors, have a nice hot chocolate and nice mittens and a bobble hat on, and a nice hoodie on if you want to, and nice big scarves and all snuggled up, because that's what winter does. Winter keeps you warm. People say it keeps you cold, but no, it keeps you warm. Makes you keep warm and stay warm and cosy, and you know. What I do like about winter is like it's kind of stasis. It does have its kind of like phases, but there's a stasis to it. It's kind of like everybody just relax for a bit, just shut things down for a bit, just calm, mellow, cold. Stay indoors. Just go and stay indoors. If you want to go out and play in the snow, that's fine. If you have snow, if you're lucky enough to have snow, I haven't had snow for a few years now. I'm quite offended. It tried to a couple of years ago, but it failed. But it's always nice to go out to other places which do have snow, lots of snow, where you fall on your backside, you can giggle a lot, and it's great fun, stomping through the snow. Anyway, enough about whiffling on. It's been 3 minutes in, so it's about time I started reading. Odds and Gods by our beloved and favourite Mr. Tom Holt. And believe me, we will be continuing on with Robert Aspirin, because I freaking loved that book. That was so much fun. But yes, just for the next few weeks, let's have a little bit of Tom Holt. Yeah, we got this. Chapter 1. On the cloudy heights dwell the gods. They are spirits of light, deathless and ever young. They feast continually in palaces wonderful beyond description, and theirs is a happiness which mortals could never possibly attain. Indeed, pull the other one for a veritable feast of campanology. The true facts of the matter are as follows. In the Sunnyvoyde Residential Home dwell the gods, the whole miserable lot of them. They are cantankerous old buggers, deathless but decidedly no longer young. They witter and bicker continuously in day rooms painted that unique shade of pale green used only in buildings set aside for the long-term storage of the sick and elderly, and they hate it like poison. Narrator's note, first one of this book, got to say, I don't mind that colour green. It's fine. Just it's indicative of a particular place. Nothing beats the absolute torture, the visual torture that is magnolia. Every house that is for sale in the UK ever has been painted magnolia. And only second to that is people that have their houses decked out in grey. Everything is grey. Grey, or white, or grey. Not even differing shades of grey. It's like literally the sofa's camouflaged to the wall. You don't know where you're going to sit. Anyway, that's enough of my rant there. Oh my goodness, I'm starting it out spicy. All because I got to read this word. Long-term storage of the sick and elderly, and they hate it like poison. All except for Ohino Hawani Ponama. A vegetation spirit formerly revered by a small tribe of Trobriand islanders. Since the entire tribe died of influenza a century ago, taking their language with them, nobody can understand a word he says. But it doesn't seem to matter. He smiles a lot. There's no trouble at all to anyone, and spends most of his time in the television room watching Australian soap operas.
Of course he's happy,
commented Marduk over lunch in the dining room.
Poor bloody savage. He's never had it so good. Probably thinks he's died and gone to heaven.
Now, Marduk had been the warrior god of the ancient Sumerians, which made him one of the oldest gods in Sunnyvoyde. Now, he was, by his own reckoning, 6,000 years old, crippled with arthritis, and in the words of Mrs. Henderson, the matron, bit of an old crosspatch. Which is like defining death as feeling a bit under the weather, or describing the Second World War as a free and frank exchange of views.
Let me just stop you there, Maddie,
interrupted Lug, shadowy and enigmatic god of the pre-Christian Celts, as he walloped the bottom of an inverted ketchup bottle.
Died and gone to heaven, I mean. We are talking about an immortal god here, and I just wondered if you'd care to clarify. You know perfectly well what I mean.
Ignore him, Matti, said Freya, the Germanic queen of heaven, surreptitiously polishing her fork. He's just being insufferable.
I thought I was being enigmatic and shadowy, Frey.
Your tie is in the gravy. There had been a, let's just say, understanding between Freya and Lug ever since the world had been created out of the bones of Ymir the Skyfather, or in Lug's case, scooped out of the churn of the stars into the butterpot of time. The creation is a highly personal thing to all gods, and they get very embarrassed if you ask them to talk about it. Obviously, since Freya's people spent most of their time massacring Lug's people and driving them into the sea, nothing could ever come of it, until now, when it was really rather too late.
I don't know why they let his sort in here,
Marduk carried on.
Lowers the tone, I say.
His sort? Lug asked, ignoring the kick on his shin from the other side of the table.
Footnotes, please. Not going to use that word, Marduk replied. In my day, we'd have had his lot up the top of the ziggurat and tied to the altar in 3 minutes flat. Now, of course, we've got to have them in here with us, which I say is wrong.
Narrator's note. We know it's not. It's just, these are people of ancient mindsets, you know.
And they get special food. Live and let live, I say,
mumbled Adonis, Greek god of spring and beauty, through his few remaining teeth in a mouthful of soup. As usual, nobody paid him any attention, and he continued his noisy struggle with the spring vegetable.
Special food, Maddie?
Lug smiled at Marduk over a forkful of lemon sole. It's only the Hindu lot, Freya said, and that's just because they're vegetarians.
Vegetarians?
In his prime, Marduk had feasted on the hearts and entrails of prisoners of war. Nowadays, virtually everything except plain bread and butter gave him wind.
Stuff and nonsense. What do they want to be vegetarians for? It's just attention-seeking, that is all.
I think it's something to do with their religion, Marty. Marduk scowled.
What the devil do you mean, religion? They're supposed to be gods, for crying out loud. Gods can't have religion, makes you go blind.
Would you pass the salt, please? Said Freya briskly. Gods do not possess eternal youth. They grow old, just like everybody else, only rather more slowly. It's also a fallacy that gods are better than anybody else. Quite the reverse, since there's absolutely nobody who dare criticise them for fear of being blasted with thunder. They are free to behave exactly as they see fit, which is usually very badly. It therefore follows that Sunnyvoyde is even trickier to run than the average run-of-the-mill old folks' home. The fact that Mrs. Henderson manages it at all is little short of a miracle. That she runs it with a rod of iron only goes to show the quite devastating force of personality she has at her disposal. For example, when Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent of the Aztecs, finally and reluctantly agreed to let his godsons book him in, he was implacably determined to have his own bathroom with hot and cold running blood, all his meals served up in jewel-encrusted skulls, and his own retinue of 7,000 dog-headed fiends to devour the souls of anybody foolish enough to give him any lip. After 5 minutes of negotiations with Mrs. Henderson, however, his demands were rapidly revised to staying in bed an extra half hour and being allowed to substitute a fresco of souls in torment for the framed print of happy kittens above his bed. The happy kittens have, by way, now crept back to their rightful place, and Quetzalcoatl is usually in his seat in the dining room for breakfast by 7:15. Only one resident of Sunnyvoyde, therefore, is allowed to have his meals in his room. When asked, Mrs. Henderson explains that he's not as young as he was, and it wouldn't be fair to expect him to make the effort to come down to the dining room 3 times a day, which is indeed part of the truth.
"Just put it down on the table, Sandra, love," said Osiris, "and pass me the remote control thing while you're there."
"Huh?" The nurse feigned irritation. "And what did your last servant die of?"
"Atheism.
"Oh.
And the woman before that was eaten by crocodiles."
"Right."
"Sacred crocodiles, naturally."
"It's apple crumble again today," said Sandra cheerfully. "You like apple crumble?" Osiris sighed.
"Sandra pet," he said, "I'm an omniscient god. Lying to me is the proverbial hiding to nothing. I can't abide apple bloody crumble."
"Then turning it into something else, Mr. Clever," Sandra replied, arranging the napkin tastefully in the shape of a pyramid. "Go on, say whoosh and turn it into chocolate mousse."
"I am not allowed chocolate mousse, and well you know it."
"There you are then," said Sandra. "Go on, you know you like it really."
"Get out," Osiris said, "before I turn you into a hedgehog."
Sandra grinned at him and shut the door. Nice girl, that. Pretty too, if you like them a little bit on the plump side. Ah, thought the erstwhile Egyptian god of plenty, if only I was 2,000 years younger. Now, the reason why Osiris got his meals in his room instead of having to come down and be sociable wasn't because he was more powerful than the other gods, oh no, or more sublime, or even particularly older, It was just that he owned the place and could, if he so choose, give Mrs. Henderson the sack. Now, several millennia of being ritually murdered each sunset by his brother Set, torn into small pieces and reassembled in hurry and pitch darkness by his slightly less than nimble-fingered wife, Lady Isis, in time for his daily resurrection at dawn, had left the old boy a physical wreck. Several of his component parts were palpably in the wrong place, and even now he still had nightmares about the many times Isis had finished the reassembly job, sewn him back up again, and then turned to him and said, "Ooh, I wonder where this bit was supposed to have gone." His mind, however, was as sharp as ever, so he kept telling himself, and he attributed this to the fact that he had spent so much time outside of his body while the good lady wife had been rewinding the intestines and poring over the wiring chart. Osiris was firmly of the opinion that a mind in a body is like a racehorse pulling a brewer's astray, or a girl with 3 PhDs becoming a housewife and dissipating her talents on ironing shirts and buying groceries. All that time and mental energy burnt up in operating limbs and keeping the senses ticking over took its toll, and eventually you were left with something barely capable of working the heart and keeping the bladder under the same semblance of control. He contemplated his lunch. Apple crumble. You knock your pipes out for thousands of years reenacting the primal struggle of light and darkness, and at the end of it some chit of a girl tells you that you like apple crumble and expects you to believe it, narrate as naught. So you should. Apple crumble is awesome. We love apple crumble. It's one of the best things on the planet, especially if you do apple crumble on top of a little bit of strawberry jam, well, raspberry jam really, which is on top of a shortcake kind of like bottom. I made that the other day. It was freaking lovely. So yes, apple crumble is the food of the gods. There you go. See, it's in the book. It's got to be true. Oh, custard. There's a theme about custard in Tom Holt books, but I digress. Some chit of a girl tells you that you like apple crumble and expects you to believe it. And hot custard. If he had a shilling for every time he'd been told them he couldn't be doing with hot custard, well, he'd still be the richest being in the cosmos, only more so. Hot custard. Narrator's note again. Freaking love custard. He paused, slamming the door on his train of thought. I'm going soft in the head, he said to himself. Here I am, the embodiment of sublime wisdom, having a paddy over a bit of hot custard. This is worrying. I've been here too long. Instinctively, he stretched his back and tested his legs against the floor. There was no strength left there at all, only pain. Damn. Osiris had never been a solar deity. If there was one thing that irritated him more than hot custard, it was being confused with a glorified tram driver who had nothing to do all day but lean on a dead man's handle and try not to bump into too many clouds. His eldest boy Horus did that job, hence the name of the family firm Osiris and Son, S-U-N, nice, and it suited him perfectly. Horus had, of course, retired long since and lived in the opposite wing of Sunnyvoyde, where, as Osiris liked to think, they put the old people. They rarely met these days, although whenever they did, Osiris never missed the opportunity to get up his offspring's aquiline nose by shouting out, "Hello there, young'un," across a room full of people. Isis, too, lived a separate life in a small room in the annex, which she had decorated with an extensive collection of photographs of the British royal family. Good riddance to them both, Osiris felt. If he hadn't had to drag out his life surrounded by idiots, he could really have been somebody. There was a knock at the door, which meant it was Sandra, back again. None of the other nurses bothered to knock. "A visitor for you, Ozzy," Sandra said. Osiris blinked. "Are you sure?" he said. "I don't have many visitors. I was inoculated against them years ago." "Well, you've got one now. Isn't that nice? It's your godson." "Oh, bugger." The meek shall inherit the earth. Eventually, when everyone else is quite finished with it, and the meek have stopped saying, "No, please, after you," until then the cocky little bastards shall inherit the earth, which means that by the time the meek get their hands on it, they'll wish the older fool had left them some money, or a clock or something instead. Hence the institution of the godchildren. Everybody knows that when it comes to affairs of the heart, gods come second only to the characters in a long-running soap opera for spreading it around. At the height of the heroic age, the average god scarcely dared set foot outside his own temple for fear of process servers with paternity suits. And the mortal children of the gods had children, and so on and so forth, and eventually the divine spark became sufficiently dilute to allow the ultimate descendants to pack in minotaur slaying and damsel rescuing and become chartered accountants instead. Narrator's note, i.e. they are pure freaking evil with no discerning talent. I freaking hate accountants. Anyway. But in each well, there probably actually are nice accountants out there. You know, there's no doubt there is. But, okay, let's narrow it down. The ones in my experience I do not like. I'm not going to, well, no, yeah. I don't think I've ever met one that I do like. Maybe I will one day. I doubt it. But in each generation there are throwbacks, particularly where the bloodlines of two or more gods happen to coincide. And spite, and oil, and half a potato, and stale plasticine. That's my description, and I'm sticking with it. That's how accountants are made. Just saying. Lost my place. I've got to get back to the base of my book. I've lost it now. Oh my god. Here it is. I found it. But in each generation there are throwbacks, particularly where the bloodlines of two or more gods happen to coincide. And from this genetic sump, humanity has always tended to draw its statesmen, its generals, its social reformers, its idealists, its princes of commerce, and all the other unmitigated bests who have contrived to make a ball of wet rock spinning in an infinite void into the camel's armpit it is today. I swear down, Tom Holt could see the future. These are the godchildren, and sooner or later they find out who they are, and more to the point, what they stand to inherit, if only... It's not supposed to do that. Predictably enough, there was a moment of complete silence. "Yes, George, we know that," said Sir Michael Arlington, breaker of awkward silences to Her Majesty's Nuclear Inspectorate. "That's why we sent for you, all the way from bloody Iowa. Do you feel up to hazarding a guess as to why?" You could do really good baked potatoes in it, said a white-haired scientist at the back of the gathering. I mean, a quarter of a nanosecond in there, add a knob of butter, and there you go.
You could indeed, replied Sir Michael, and when it is ready, it'd probably be able to walk out on its own. Any sensible suggestions would be very, very welcome. It's gone wrong.
Professor George Eisenkopf, resident nuclear genius at the University of Chicopee Falls, Iowa, and the State Department's leading authority on civilian atomic power, scratched his nose with the plastic coffee stirrer he'd been given on the plane. Narrator's not, I'm glad you don't see them anymore, evil things.
It isn't working properly,
he added, in case there were any laymen present. Sir Michael winced.
Please, George, he muttered, don't worry too much about blinding us with science. In what way has it gone wrong?
I don't know.
Great. Is it about to blow up?
Too early to say. Professor Eisenkopf leaned forward and tapped a couple of keys on a computer keyboard in front of him. The screen flickered, flashed a few columns of figures, and announced itself ready to play Monster Nintendo. Sorry, mumbled the baked potato enthusiast, nudging past and pressing some other keys. Only my wife's nephew came in to see the place the other day, and I haven't had time to...
Don't worry about it.
Professor Eisenkopf studied the data he'd called up and pursed his lips.
You're going to find this a bit hard to relate to, guys, but there's something alive in there.
In where, George? In the core, the professor replied.
As far as I can tell from this box of tricks sitting on top of the goddamn pile.
Sir Michael nodded.
Probably grilling a few sausages, he said.
Pardon me?
To go with the potatoes.
Not all the gods retired. Some of them still soldier on, mainly because they're horribly overworked and never had time to train a successor. Just such a one was having a well-earned sit-down and a cold beef sandwich in the infernal heart of Bosworth Pike Power Station. His name was Pan, and if you add ick to his name, you get his portfolio in the Sublime Cabinet. Neat one, he said to himself, squinting at the diagram, and Po too. He was knitting a matinee jacket for Truth, who, as is tolerably well known, is the daughter of Time, and he had an uneasy feeling that he'd gone wrong somewhere. He had a further unpleasant suspicion that the faint brown check which had crept into the pattern about 12 rows back was in fact his beard. Nuts, he said, and let go of the needles. The knitting flopped, suspended from his chin, and he reached for the scissors. The fact remained that his analyst had recommended knitting as tremendous therapy for hypertension and stress, and over the last few millennia he'd tried just about everything else several times. Under him the ground started to glow green. He licked a fingertip, pressed it ever so gently against the side of the pile, and was rewarded with a loud sizzle, just nicely ready in fact. He stood up. Pan now is, of course, a nice god, or at least it's wise to believe so, because our beliefs have a profound effect on the divine self-image. This isn't a comfortable thing for the gods themselves. The Egyptian deity Seraphis, for example, never tries to eat a piece of toast without cursing the faithful for believing in the existence of a crocodile-headed god, and it's by no means unknown for a god to wake up one morning to find himself, or herself, a totally different shape or species simply because of some thoughtlessly imaginative revival meeting held on the previous evening. Narrator's note, rude. Mortals believe that Pan, although an incurable practical joker with a sense of humour that would have appalled Joseph Goebbels, is fundamentally one of the good guys and incapable of doing anything that would actually result in lasting harm. He was gonna have his work cut out for him this time, though. On the other hand, he was a god, and to the gods all things are possible, at least in theory. Thus it was that when the emergency repair squad broke into the reactor cell 3 days later, wearing their lead suits and clinging like covetous limpets to their lucky rabbit's feet, their Geiger counters showed up a radiation level several points below the normal ambient reading. What they did find, however, was a toasting fork, an unopened pat of butter, and 5 stone-cold baked potatoes. There are some people who like lawyers. Narrators know there are actually a lot of nice lawyers out there. They're good people. There's the good ones and the bad ones. I think it's the type of law that you practice. Yeah, and in what way you practice it. That generally defines what sort of person you are, I think. God, I'm really spicy today. I'm really sorry. My goodness. That's 2 days on the trot of being a bit spicy. I mean, a bit... Right. For example, Ashtoreth, the antediluvian moon goddess of southern Palestine, was thrilled to bits when her great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great godson Hyman was made a partner in the leading New York firm of Kaplan and Hart, and drove the other occupants of Sunflower Annex to the brink of violence by talking loudly and incessantly about her godson Jaime, the lawyer. Other deities with whom lawyers are popular include Ahriman, the father of darkness, Hermes, patron god of thieves, the Scandinavian Loki, god of lies and deceit, and Bilinos, in whose honour the druids burnt men alive in wicker cages. You can't beat a lawyer, according to Bilinos, for the generation of plenty of hot air. Osiris, for his part, had always reckoned that he could take them or leave them alone, with a marked preference for the latter option. Visits from his current godson were therefore as welcome as a rat in a morgue. And that, he felt, remembering where he was, is no bad analogy. I really shouldn't be in this place. Hellfire, if only the dozy old bat hadn't had the exploded diagram the wrong way up the last night he did the reassembly. I wouldn't be. I'd be out there bombarding snotty little tykes like Julian with meteorites.
"How do, Julian?"
he said as his godson entered the room.
"Brought me some grapes then?"
"Yup."
"Constant grapes?"
"No matter." There was a gong-like sound as the bag of grapes hit the bottom of the tin waste paper basket. "Look, I've got to be quick. I'm due in a meeting in 40 minutes. How's life treating you anyway?" Osiris paused, stroking his chin.
"Life," he pronounced, "is a bit like mashed sweet. Little bit's nice for a change now and then, but you wouldn't want to live on it."
Narrator's note: mashed sweet and carrots with black pepper. Ommy nom nom noms.
"Yup."
Julian stared at him for a few seconds and blinked twice.
"The leg's still playing you up then?" "Aren't you going to write it down?"
"Write what down?"
"What I just said,"
replied Osiris testily.
"That was a teaching, that was. You're supposed to write them down. Teachings."
"Oh."
"Don't give me that boiled cod look, because there's been daughter things and not said out of burning bushes. Take it from me. How's Felita?"
"Sorry?"
"Your wife."
"Oh." Julian looked at his watch. Fine. I'd have heard if she wasn't. Look, I hate to rush up like this, but it really is a very important meeting.
"And Ben and little Julia?"
"They're fine too. Ask after you all the time. Anyway, it's been great seeing you."
"Your children," said Osiris icily, "are in fact called Emma and Clinton. Keeping busy, are you?"
"Yup, thanks. It's been an uphill job, holistically speaking, with the recession bottoming out, but the medium to long-term overview of our bedrock client base is definitely more positive than negative, and..."
"Just remind me," said Osiris, "what it is you do."
Julian sighed.
"I'm a lawyer, Oz,"
he replied.
"Oh," said Osiris. "Oh, well, never mind. You just got to try not to give up hope, but that's all. I heard the good joke about lawyers the other day."
"I know them all, thanks, Oz. Look, I'll call you. Look after yourself. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, okay?"
"Son," replied Osiris with conviction, "I wouldn't do anything you would. Shut the door on your way out."
Julian looked at him. "You feeling okay, Oz?" he asked. Osiris looked up, startled by his tone of voice.
"I believe so," he replied, "as well as can be expected for someone whose small intestine now runs slap bang through the middle of his bile duct. Why?"
"Oh, nothing," Julian replied absently, as he picked at the handle of his briefcase. "You just seem kind of odd today, that's all."
"Odd? Right.
Not quite, 110%.
"Julian, my boy, if I was 110%, there would be a 7¼ inch high replica of me standing beside me on the hearthrug. Go on now, sling your hook."
"You haven't been, for example, hearing strange voices or anything?"
"Yes," Osiris snapped. "Yours. Now piece off."
Okay. Same time next week, right?"
"Right," Osiris sighed. "Unless, of course, I'm in a meeting. The doorknob is the round brass thing about 3 feet up from the floor. A half turn to the right usually does the trick."
As Julian retreated down the corridor, he played back his mental tape of the interview, ignoring the crackles. Yes, the old fool had sounded strange, but on reflection, no stranger than usual. "Hey!" Julian stopped, standing on one foot, and suddenly grinned. He just had an idea. What did you think of that? first chapter of Odds and Gods. Oh, that's quite good, actually. I enjoyed that. So the premise is essentially all of your favourite gods from all over the world, all different types, are in a retirement home. And basically, you've got the main characters are going to be Odin and Osiris, out of everybody, I think. But I think with this book as well, is a really good supporting cast. So each one's got their own personality, and it's sometimes, when cold reading, it's sometimes difficult with certain words. I think we've had this conversation before, if you remember. So if I do stop and go, well, I'm not reading that, that's kind of an indication that there is a particular word that I probably don't agree with. I try not to put it on. Literally, I suppose, out of all of the words that could be considered offensive, I probably wouldn't read about 3 or 4 of them. You know, I don't want to put my opinions or beliefs on anybody else at all. But on the other hand, there is a certain line, especially in today's society, and if you use certain words, whether you agree with them or not, you're gonna get canned, essentially, and we don't want to do that. And also, it's not nice. It was a different time, so you know. And I think that was what Tom Holt was trying to portray in that one specifically. But yes, anyway, that was a bit serious, wasn't it? Jeepers Creepers. Talking about Jeepers Creepers, it's spooky season. Skeletons. I don't know the words to that. I should learn it. I should learn it for us for the next one, because obviously we will hopefully get a couple more in before Halloween. Hopefully, cross fingers, knock on wood, and whatnot, because we're coming up to the end of the year and I'm a bit behind in my recordings, and I wanted to have had more done than this. So, yes, I did a post. So the ones I've definitely locked in are Mary Poppins, Box of Delights, Dr. Doolittle's, and maybe that might be January. Definitely going to do more Robert Aspirin. I would like to do more Robert Rankin, because I really, really like the Brentford trilogy, and you know, his writing style is just absolutely outstanding. But I think that one will have to be the new year as well. There's also a lot of other books I wanted to do for like kind of Halloween, going into autumn, like, you know, close time. So we'll work it out. It'll be all right. We got this. Yay! As ever. If you're too cold, wrap up warm, nice hot cup of tea, maybe a cheese toasty, just keep it nice and cosy, nice and snuggy. If you're too hot, have a lot of hydration, stay in the shade, make sure you remember your zinc on your nose. You don't want to get sunburn, not there, no. But most of all, thank you for being you, thank you for being here. If you have reached this point, please leave a like, leave a pumpkin in your comment. Yeah, if you reached it this far, please leave a pumpkin in your comment. And if you can, like, share, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. It helps the channel absolutely no end, especially the notifications bell, because you know what I'm like. I'm flaky as out these days. So, you know, hitting the notifications bell will tell you when you got your new chapter up, especially when you've got a book like this, which I really want to get done. Quick, smart, pippity pop and all that sort of malarkey. Yes. I appreciate you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being here. And take care, pet.